What does it take to achieve a near perfect balance between bourbon cask and sherry cask and a Scotch whiskey? I don't know, but you may have to ask Balblair Distillery. Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, going to do a review of the Balblair 15-year-old Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky. But before I get into this, let me tell you a little bit about the history of Balblair Distillery. Balblair Distillery is located in Edrington, Ross-shire, Scotland. The name of the distillery, Balblair, means settlement in the plain. In 1790, Balblair Distillery was established by John Ross of the Clan Ross. The location of the original distillery is uncertain, but some of the present buildings may date back from the 18th century. In 1836, John Ross died and his son, Andrew Ross, took over the distillery with his sons. In 1872, Balblair Distillery was rebuilt on the current site by Andrew Ross and his sons. In 1894, Alexander Cowan took over and rebuilt the distillery. In 1911, Alex Cowan and Company is forced to cease payments and the distillery closed. In 1941, Balblair Distillery was put up for sale. In 1948, Robert Cumming bought Balblair Distillery for £48,000. In 1949, Balblair Distillery resumed production. In 1970, Robert Cummings sold Balblair Distillery to Hiram Walker & Sons of Scotland Limited, which is a subsidiary of Hiram Walker Gooderham and Worts Limited in Canada. In 1970, Balblair Distillery extended from 2 to 3 stills. In 1988, Balblair Distillery was sold to Allied Distillers Limited. In 1996, Allied Distillers sold Balblair Distillery to Inverhouse Distillers Limited. In 2000, Balblair Elements and first version of the Balblair 30-year-old were launched. In 2001, the company Pacific Spirits, part of the Great Oriole Group, took over the Inverhouse Distillers Limited. In 2004, the Balblair 38-year-old was launched. In 2005, the Balblair 12 Peaty Cask, 1979 24-year-old, and 1970 35-year-old were launched. In 2006, International Beverage Holdings acquired Pacific Spirits UK. From 2008 to 2018, Balblair bottled vintage whiskies. In 2019, Balblair Distillery changed from vintage bottlings to age statements in new core range of a 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old, and 25-year-old. The Balblair 15-year-old Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky is aged for 15 years in ex-bourbon casks and first fill Spanish oak sherry butts. It's bottled at 46% alcohol by volume, and in my neighborhood sells for $105 to $118. So typically a distillery ages a whiskey some amount of years in a bourbon cask and then finishes it in a sherry cask. But there's a number of different ways in which you can go about sort of calibrating the profile that you want, whether using 100% bourbon and then 100% sherry casks, separate whiskeys, and then putting them together, such as Balblair, or say doing 13 years bourbon, 2 years, 6 months, a year and a half, whatever, in a sherry cask, and sort of dial it in to the profile that you want. And it takes a real master blender to really achieve a really nice balance. Yeah, you get your sherry bombs, and you can have it where you have a predominantly bourbon cask with just, a little hint of sherry that just gives you a little bit of spice to it. But this whiskey does equal justice to, I think, both the bourbon cask and the sherry cask, such that there is a great balance and harmony between the two casks. A lot of Christmas cake or panettone roll, if you're familiar with panettone rolls. So dried dark fruit notes, fig, dates, raisins. But there's also a little bit of a citrus peel, maybe a little bit of dried red cherries, some vanilla, really nice spice, baking spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, a good balance of vanilla. It's not a vanilla bomb, but it's definitely making its presence. Some caramel, some honey, and the more I spend time on the nose, the more the citrus comes through, really counterbalancing the darker dry black fruit notes on the palate. Starts off sweet, finishes dry, a little bit of maltiness, a little bit of maltiness. You know, you want a little bit of maltiness in your whiskey. A little bit of saltiness on the finishes, on the finish. Finishes dry and just a hint of tannin, giving the whiskey a real nice backbone. Really great development and transition from the front and the middle into the finish. Sweet honey notes up front, citrus. The dried black fruit notes start showing up around the middle and into the back. The oxidative character of the sherry note, of the sherry cask, is showing up on the back end. It has a medium to medium plus length finish, so it has a really nice development. It has a nice long finish. The mouthfeel is silky without being too smooth. It's not quite creamy, but it does have enough viscosity there to hold your attention and I think maintain the finish. I'm still tasting it now. It has a really nice long finish. This is a superb whiskey. It's probably near perfection. So what am I going to give it in terms of a score? I'm going to go a solid, either between 90 and 92. When I give something a score, and I always have to ask myself, in order to justify the score, what would it take to go higher? And I'm going to say it's probably at 92. I'm going to give it a 92 because it has the development, the length of finish. It has enough complexity. I like the mouthfeel. And it has a nice length to finish. Well, so in order to get to say 93, 94, 95, I don't know if I've ever given a whiskey more than 95. But to get it higher than that, probably a little bit more depth, a little bit more breadth. And typically that's going to come with a little higher ABV. But this is an absolutely superb whiskey. A lot of competition in this profile, but I think Balblair is really doing a good job in holding its own. All right, that's it for this video. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. But you've not yet subscribed, ask to ring the bell to be notified when I go live or post a new video. Until next time, Slanja.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.